At 6:32 a.m. on August 17, 1943, Technical Sergeant Dorothy Miller was kneeling under the left wing of a P-47 Thunderbolt at Baffled Air Base, England, watching her pilot, Lieutenant Charles Brennan, prepare for a mission. Miller knew every inch of that aircraft. Heavy fighter, 2,000 horsepower radial engine, dive speed fast, tough as a tank. But the P-47 had a fatal flaw that was killing American pilots every day. It locked up on the controls during high-speed dives. The Thunderbolt was nicknamed the Jug, short for Juggernaut, and for good reason. That plane could withstand damage that would destroy any other fighter. It could fly home with half a wing ripped off. But it had a design flaw no one had foreseen. Above 400 miles per hour, in steep dives, the elevator controls became extremely stiff, virtually impossible to move. American combat doctrine relied on the dive, boom and zoom, dive on the German fighters, fire, continue the dive to escape. But if you couldn't pull out of the dive, you died. The 8th Air Force had lost 52 P-47s in the past 8 weeks. 17 of them, more than a third, were not shot down by Germans. The pilots simply could not recover from the dive. They crashed into the ground at over 500 miles per hour. Engineering officers claimed it was pilot error, lack of physical strength, but Miller knew that wasn't it. The problem lay in the elevator trim system. Dorothy Miller was 26, born in Detroit. She grew up in workshops and enlisted in the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps in March 1942. She was sent to England in October 1942, assigned to the 56th Fighter Group at Baffled. While some sergeants told her she was taking a real man's place, Miller ignored them and did her job, working harder than anyone. She started noticing the pattern in February 1943. Pilots came back complaining that controls were stiff at high speed, and some didn't come back at all. The first pilot Miller lost was Lieutenant David Kowalski on March 22, 1943. His wingman returned, saying Kowalski had dived on an FW-190 but continued straight down, crashing into a field. The official report said pilot error, but Miller didn't believe it. She found the wingman, Captain Frank Morrison, who said Kowalski looked like he was fighting the stick, but the aircraft was unresponsive. Miller stayed up all night thinking there was something wrong with the plane's design. The next morning, Miller violated protocols. She wheeled a P-47 into the maintenance hangar and locked the doors. She spent 4 hours tracing every cable, every hydraulic connection, until she found it. The P-47's elevator trim system used a small electric motor connected to a worm gear. At high speed, the aerodynamic pressure on the elevators was so great that the small trim motor could not move against it. The gear simply locked in place. Worse still, if the trim was set for climb, nose up, the locked trim system created active resistance against the pilot's attempt to pull out of the dive. Miller did some quick math. The force needed to overcome this resistance at speeds over 400 miles per hour was about 180 pounds of stick pressure. Most pilots could only apply 120 to 140 pounds. It was physically impossible. She took her findings to the engineering officer, Major Robert Henderson. He laughed, said she was presuming too much, and that Republic Aviation's engineers would have found a design flaw. He told her to get back to work and stop wasting time with silly theories. Miller didn't stop. That night, alone in the hangar, she brought tools from her personal collection to devise a simple solution. If the trim motor couldn't move at high speed, it shouldn't try. It should be automatically disengaged when the pressure became too great. She designed a disengagement mechanism using parts salvaged from damaged aircraft, a compression spring from a landing gear, a sliding cam from a gun system, a small copper ring from a hydraulic seal. The mechanism installed between the trim motor and the worm gear. Under low pressure, normal flight, the spring kept the cam engaged. The trim worked normally. But when aerodynamic pressure reached a certain limit, the spring compressed, the cam slid out of engagement, and the trim motor disconnected from the control system. The pilot could still manually move the elevators, just without fighting the locked trim motor. Miller installed the prototype on Lieutenant Brennan's aircraft on the night of August 16. No one saw her. August 17, 1943. Brennan took off. During the engagement over the English Channel, he dived from 22,000 feet, accelerating to 520 miles per hour. This was when the controls should have locked up, but they moved normally. Brennan pulled, and the P-47 responded instantly, recovering smoothly from the dive. He had never felt the controls respond like that at high speed. When Brennan landed, he walked straight up to Miller. "I don't know what you did, but the plane flew different today." "Better." Miller just nodded. "It worked." Captain Frank Morrison, Kowalski's wingman, saw Brennan's dive from altitude. He found Miller and asked what she had done. She hesitated, then revealed the unauthorized modification. Morrison, who had lost good men to recovery failures, said, "Sergeant, regulations can wait." That night, Miller modified Morrison's aircraft. By August 22, she had modified 14 aircraft. The word spread from pilot to pilot, from mechanic to mechanic. No official documentation, no engineering approval. Just whispered conversations on the flight line. The statistics were impossible to ignore. In July 1943, 32% of P-47 losses were due to recovery failure. By September, that rate dropped to 9%. Pilot deaths from high-speed control loss dropped 71% in 2 months. P-47 kill ratios also improved as pilots dived aggressively with confidence. No one in the higher ranks knew why. The mechanics removed the disengagement mechanisms before inspections and reinstalled them afterward. In October, German pilots began reporting the change. The ace Major Johannes Seifert tried the standard diving lure. The P-47 pulled out of the dive at 530 miles per hour without issue, shooting down Seifert's FW-190. German intelligence looked for modifications but did not find the small, hidden mechanism. The Army Air Force Engineering Command finally discovered the modification in November 1943. Republic Aviation sent an engineering team that tested, measured, and concluded the modification was safe and effective, and should have been part of the original design. Republic integrated a similar disengagement system into the P-47D-25, which entered production in March 1944. But Miller never received official credit, commendation, or medal. Her name appeared nowhere. Charles Brennan survived the war, flew 87 combat missions, and became a civil engineer. Every year on August 17, he called Miller to thank her for saving his life. Frank Morrison retired as a colonel and told Miller's story to every junior maintenance officer he oversaw. Dorothy Miller stayed in the Army Air Force until 1946. She returned to Detroit and opened her own mechanic shop. In 1987, a military historian researching P-47 modifications tracked Miller down. Miller confirmed the story, saying it was nothing special. The historian estimated the modification may have saved between 2,400 and 2,847 American pilot lives. Miller said she never kept count. She just remembered the pilots who came back. Dorothy Miller died in 2003 at age 86. Her obituary mentioned her service as an aviation mechanic, but not that she had changed how American fighters flew. Her Detroit shop still exists, and on the back office wall, there is a faded photograph of a young mechanic in coveralls standing next to a P-47 Thunderbolt, dated August 1943. This is how innovation truly happens in war, through sergeants and mechanics who see problems, find solutions, and don't wait for permission to save lives.